Hi, welcome to the Kwanza Summit. My name is Princely Glorious. I'm a designer and storyteller from Tanzania. I'm speaking to you today from Hargeisa in Somaliland. I'm here in Somaliland as an East Africa Media Lab Fellow doing a storytelling project. And Kwanza Africa have asked me to speak to you about OnaStories, which is a storytelling platform that I began building about a year ago. I'm going to play you a little news clip from around the time we started that explains what OnaStories is and does.
The mass media used to mean teams of cameramen, politicians and mobs of journalists. But in the 21st century there's a quieter revolution underway, the global storyteller broadcasting from a bedroom. OnaStories is a tiny startup with big ambitions. It produces Swahili videos designed for mobile phones, and it aims to be part of an African media renaissance.
We believe very strongly that African stories need to be told from an African perspective, from people with a knowledge and understanding of the continent. There's a quote from Achebe that says, "Unless the lion tells its own story, the story of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." And it's our attempt at telling the African story through mobile video.
My mobile is my best friend.
And there's a big audience for those stories. Tanzania has more than 40 million mobile phone users thirsty for information. More than half of Tanzanians are under the age of 30 and they are buying mobile phones in their thousands, spending their time browsing for homegrown content. So these videos aren't just becoming a form of mass communication, they are challenging the dominance of newspapers and radio.
Ona is the Swahili word for see, but you could use it as a verb to say look. So my sister tells me when we were younger, I used to give her information overload. Every time I'd be like, Zoe, Ona, look at this, see this. And we decided to package that. I found a great partner last year, and we decided to pack this information overload into an avenue for African storytelling. But I don't want to focus so much about OnaStories. I want to focus more about you and how you can use storytelling to advance the narrative of Africa and to shape the way the world thinks and speaks about our continent. As young Africans, we need to begin staking a claim on the Africa narrative. For too long, our story has been told by others, and even for others. But we need to be the generation that looks inside ourselves and finds the stories within the continent and begins telling these stories, begins shaping the way that the world thinks and speaks about Africa. You see, for many around the world right now, Africa is the final frontier. It's a place where unsolved problems abound, but within these problems, there's boundless opportunity. And so we're seeing people stream in from the east and from the west. The world is knocking again at Africa's doors, and we are the ones to answer it. We must answer this time with purpose, with a belief, a supreme confidence in our abilities to shape our own future, and with a story that we ourselves have determined. You see, stories shape the way we live our lives because they shape what we believe. Almost everything you know is a story that you've been told. Just think about that, whether it's your personal history or collective history as a people, as a continent, as the world. Almost everything you know is a story that you've been told. But for a very long time, in fact for most of recorded history, Africa's story has been told by everyone else. Like Achebe says, until the lion tells its story, the version of the story of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. And the story that's been told about Africa has been a tale of poverty, of problematic leadership, a lack of history or heritage, and little in the way of a self-determined future. This has to change, and we are the ones to change it. You must begin to ask yourself, how am I contributing to the narrative of Africa? There's never been a time in history where it's as easy or easier to add your voice to the global story. digital media, and particularly social media, has really amplified individual voices. And it may be the greatest opportunity for you to do what I'm talking about, to shape the narrative about Africa. But you see, the challenge with digital media is that while it has amplified your voice, it's also loudened the voices of millions of others. You know, it sometimes seems as though our social feeds are just a relentless cacophony of pointless noise. Oh, look at my lunch. Oh, look at my face. Look at my friends. You know, we're all guilty of this. In today's digital age, I like to think of almost every one of us as a media house competing for your time and your attention. But we need to begin taking the opportunity of digital media a little more seriously. We need to be more purposeful in finding and telling the stories that we want told about our continent. Purpose. Instead of just using social media for the thrill of creating interest in ourselves, you know, for that sweet rush of dopamine that we get when we hear that ding, ding, ding of notifications and likes, we need to begin setting the agenda for our portions of Africa. We can do that through digital media, through social media. And we need to begin shaping the perceptions of people about our continent. So every time that you're looking at your social feed, every time that you're putting something, a story out there, start asking yourself, what am I doing to shape the narrative about my continent? What is this adding to the storyline of Africa? Now, I want you to challenge yourself. I'd like you to take, all these things that I'm talking about, shaping and shifting the perception about Africa, a little more as a personal challenge. So I'll tell you a little story. I arrived in Somaliland about 2 weeks ago. And if you take a moment and think about what people think of Greater Somalia and the Horn of Africa, instability, terror, war. But when I arrived here, what I found was peace and stability and democracy here in Somaliland at least. And so I challenged myself. What can I do? What simple thing can I do that will shift the perception or change the storyline of Somaliland in my own little way? And so I went out on the streets with my friend, a street photographer from Somaliland, Adnan Abdo. I told him, Adnan, take me around Hargeisa, and I want to ask different people from Somaliland what they want to say about their country that maybe other people from around Africa and from around the world don't know. And we came up with 7 different things that we thought you don't know about Somaliland.
Somaliland is different from Somalia in terms of peace and stability and development. Somaliland is democratic.
And the telecoms companies have done fantastically well here. They have the cheapest calling rates for international calls in the whole world.
So Hargeisa is a booming city, teeming with life and people. It's a business center. This is Gail, camel meat.
I said to Ismail, this camel meat is so good, it tastes like beef. It's like, careful, don't say that too loudly. Some people won't like hearing that because camel meat is better than beef.
Almost everywhere now is covered in billboards for different political parties. This one's Kulmia, the ruling party, which has the same colors as Tanzania's ruling party, CCM, green and yellow. This is the game that I'll be focusing on. It's Shah. Did I pronounce it right?
When we talk about reshaping the Africa narrative, it's not going to be through some large cataclysmic events. No, it's going to be through small things, just like that Instagram story series that we've just looked at, 7 things that you don't know about Somaliland. I got 2 types of feedback from doing that series. The first one was from here in Somaliland. I got hundreds of different messages of people saying, thank you. Thank you for talking about Somaliland. Thank you for adding a positive voice about Somaliland. Thank you for attempting to shift perceptions about this country. And the second one was from Tanzania, where a lot of my audience is. And from Tanzania, I was able to partner with Elimika Weekend, and through them we got a reach of about 400,000, a little over 400,000 unique users looking at this series. And from the Tanzanian side, the comments were more like, oh wow, Somaliland is normal. Oh, Hargeisa looks just like Dar es Salaam. Oh, there's somebody listening to Migos in the car. And it's peaceful, it's stable. There was a shift in perception from, oh, this is this unstable, terror-driven place, into this normalcy, into this new perception of, oh wow, this place is peaceful and stable and different from what I had imagined. That's what we're talking about when we say we need to start looking at what we're putting out there as an opportunity to shape and shift perceptions about Africa. Somaliland is just like a microcosm, a small example of the rest of Africa. Where here, people think about it as terror and things like that. Most people think of Africa as poor, as bad leadership, as poor mismanagement and corruption and all these different things. Now, what I've been able to do, in a small way for Somaliland, if we all do it for the rest of the continent, for the different portions of Africa that we're from, we can begin to see an actual cataclysmic shift, a perception shift of how people see and think and react to Africa. I want to finish off with a quote from Chinua Achebe, who, as you may have noticed, is one of my favorite African thinkers. He says, if you do not like someone else's story, write your own. I think this line is so empowering because it's telling us, and it's telling you right now, that if you do not like the story that has been told about our continent, if we do not like the narrative that has been dominant regarding Africa, if we do not like the way that our history has been recorded by others, because the way that our stories have been told and dominated by people that are not from the continent, instead of wallowing in self-defeat, or instead of wallowing in a sense of hopelessness or a lack of agency, we need to start saying that, it's time for us to write the story. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to me today. I hope that you can take what we've discussed over the past few minutes about claiming and reshaping the Africa narrative and putting it into use in your own way. Let's start looking at the different digital interactions that we have through the lens of African storytelling. Remember that if you do not like the story that's being told about Africa, it's about time that you write your own. Thank you.